Welcome to another episode of the MMA Lock-Cast. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMALOTN. This week, we are going to be going over UFC Minneapolis, which is headlined by Francis Ngannou and Junior Dos Santos. Heavy fight here we got at the heavyweight division. No need to sound redundant, but I'm pretty certain that you could see a number one contender emerge out of this fight. Both guys have, they have enough viability or evidence, I should say, to deserve a title shot after Daniel Cormier fights Stipe Miocic. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing a heavyweight contender emerge out of this fight. And it's a fight that we haven't seen before, and I think a lot of people have been clamoring for it ever since Francis Ngannou has kind of made his way to the top of the division, and Junior Dos Santos has always been around lingering there. And now we finally get to see this fight come to fruition. So I'm super excited for that. Can't wait for that fight to happen. No casuals this week. This is going to be a relatively quicker episode than normal as well. I got a couple of things that are on my checklist for today that I'm trying to bang out, but first and foremost was this podcast itself. So I want to make sure that I always get the content out for you guys and give my best as well. So let's quickly go over what has transpired since the last time you guys have actually seen me. We had UFC. What did we have? UFC Greenville that went down, as well as Bellator London / Bellator 223, if you want to call it that. So let's start off with Bellator 223 / London. It was the one winning event that I had this weekend. So I had 0.5 units on Jeremiah Labiano. I thought he was going to be able to grind out James Gallagher here, maybe have a little bit of success on the feet. It was 1-1 going into that third round, and unfortunately, James Gallagher was the one that was able to gut it out a little bit more. Had the top control, was able to grind out the fight, and he didn't get a finish there. But I think for a plus 350 underdog, we got relatively good value off of Labiano, so I'm not too mad at the 0.5 unit bet there. With that said, I had another 0.5 unit bet on a giant underdog that I didn't think deserved to be as big of an underdog as he was. Gegard Mousasi is a great fighter. On the last Combative Tours, I even told Tony as well, I think Mousasi is one of the best fighters out there. But Lovato Jr. brings a very interesting wrinkle to this game. I think that the fact that his jiu-jitsu was so high level, if he's able to get these fights to the ground, I think he's able to control these guys. And Gegard Mousasi has a really good defensive jiu-jitsu game, even though he was tapped by Jacare Souza the last time he fought somebody with such a high level jiu-jitsu game. But I really felt that Lovato Jr. was gassing after that third round. It was kind of looking, shady for us after, I believe that it was 2-1, maybe even 3-0. It could have been 3-0 going into that fourth round. But Gegard Mousasi finished that third round really strong. Fourth round was clearly Gegard Mousasi. And then fifth round, I don't know where the fuck Lovato Jr. got this gasp of energy from. But he was able to actually, grind out Mousasi, get top position, and grind out that fifth round, then eventually got the decision. I was very surprised that he was able to bounce back after looking absolutely shot in that third round. And great value for a plus 369 underdog. I had to get that 0.5 unit stab on him. Kind of mad that I didn't go the full unit, but it is what it is, I can't be too mad about it. Moving on to UFC Greenville, kind of a, crappier card for me. Started off very strong with Jairzinho Rosenstruik. I had him winning inside the distance, two units at minus 142. Cashed on that for 1.41 units. And then also I had 1.1 units on Ashley Yoder at minus 110, so I cashed a full unit there. So that was great. I thought I had a great fucking event coming ahead of me. However, it just was all downhill from there. Minus 2 units on Kevin Aguilar at minus 137. Danny Ige continuing to improve and continuing to impress. So I'm very, I'm happy for him. Unfortunate for the bet. Next up, we had underdog of the night play. Plus 201 on 1.25 units for Montana De La Rosa. Unfortunately, It was minus 1.25 units. Andrea Lee was able to get up more than I expected she was able to. Montana De La Rosa did get this fight to the ground. However, Andrea Lee showed better get-up game there I thought she was going to have against a strong wrestler like Montana De La Rosa. So, unfortunately, lost her. I definitely, I'm not hating myself at all for taking the shot at plus 201 odds for a girl that's been looking as good as Montana De La Rosa has been. Unfortunately, Andrea Lee did what she needed to get the victory there, and obviously she had the better stand-up striking too, or the stand-up techniques, so I was expecting her to obviously win that stand-up realm, but once I hit the ground I thought Montana was going to have a little bit more success. Unfortunately she did not. Next up was my lock of the night play. Unfortunately, both fucking shit the bed. It was very unfortunate. I had a huge 11 leg parlay as well that was about to cash as well until it hit the co-main event, which was Brian Barberena losing to Randy Brown. That one was kind of shocking. I don't know if it was the Vicente Luque fight that really took it out of Barberena, but he just did not look like the same fighter. And I don't want to take anything away from Randy Brown because he looked really good too. He held his own in the stand up department, which is where I thought he would have the most success. I just didn't think he would have that much success. So that was very surprising to me. And then Hanato Moicano completely getting absolutely melted by Korean Zombie less than a minute into the fight. Don't know what more to say about that. Maybe Moicano's chin is completely gone, and Korean Zombie is back. Again, team tired, team forever tired. Ending that was minus 5.84 units for UFC Greenville. I think I ended up minus 4.4-ish units, 4.3-ish units on the weekend, if you want to include Bellator on that. I don't know what to say. It was unfortunate. Very shitty loss there. That's now the first losing event in this stretch, minus 0.64 units, so fuck you. Minus 3.2 units on Chicago, minus 2.79 units on Bellator 222, plus 1.35 units on Bellator 223, and then minus 5.84 units on UFC Greenville. So very disheartening, but we're right back fucking into the thick of things with UFC Minneapolis. UFC is killing it with the amount of fights they have scheduled for the next several weeks. So it's more than enough time to get these fucking these L's back, and keep the train rolling. So UFC Minneapolis is what we got coming up next. It's a pretty good card in my opinion. There's a lot of significant fights that are sprinkled throughout it, not just the main event, but we got Jussier Formiga against Joseph Benavidez, which should also have a contender emerge from this fight. The flyweight division is railing really thin right now, and it could definitely use a Joseph Benavidez W here, especially considering that Joseph Benavidez has a win over the current flyweight champion in Henry Cejudo. Damian Martin against Anthony Rocco Martin. Damian Maia versus Tony Martin. Great fight there to see if Anthony Martin is going to be able to hang with the top of the 170 division. He's had a bit of a decent rise in the 170 division. He's coming off that Sergio Moraes win, so looking forward to what's going on with him. A Roosevelt Roberts going up against a very tough veteran in Vinc Pichel, so we'll get to see if Roosevelt Roberts is really the real thing here. Paul Craig making his return once again against another jacked striker who should be able to beat him and should win here, but he always finds his way to fucking get a submission victory, so it's going to be interesting to see if Alonzo Menifield can pass this test. Ricardo Ramos was supposed to face Sergio Pettis here. I believe it was Pettis, or was it Pettis? Yes, Sergio Pettis. So that was a very highly touted fight, in my opinion. So I was much looking forward to that. Unfortunately, Ramos is fighting Johnny Newson now, who I haven't been able to look into too much as of yet. Vinicius Moreira against Eryk Anders should be a good fight. Jared Gordon against Dan Moret should be a good fight. And unfortunately, we just lost a fight between Dalce Lungiambula against Justin Ledet. That was a pretty shitty one to lose. But, again, like I said, overall, it's a decent card. We're going to really find out if some guys are real. We're going to find out who real contenders are as well. But I think it's a great event overall. At least from a hardcore's perspective, I'm going to say. All right, let's fucking just get this show on the road. Let's fucking move things on. All right, first fight. We got Maurice Green, the crochet boss, against Junior Albini. Maurice Green is going up against Junior Albini here after coming off of 2 straight victories over Michel Batista, where he won in terms of a triangle choke. I just had a long night. I don't want to get into it too much. Regardless, again, forever tired. Maurice Green coming off a victory over Michel Batista, and then Jeff Hughes, which is a rematch that he actually won. He fought Jeff Hughes in his last fight before he got into the Ultimate Fighter. He lost that fight, but then this rematch against Jeff Hughes, which is a fight that I had lock of the night money on Jeff Hughes because it looked so easy for him to actually get this victory. Unfortunately, Maurice Green pulled out the split decision victory, and now he's running into a fight win streak going into this fight against Junior Albini. So the main thing about Maurice Green here is he's been working on his guard game a lot. His jiu-jitsu has looked decent for a heavyweight that's, as old as he is, 30, 32 right now. He's going up against Junior Albini, who has, there's no qualms about it. This guy wants to keep it on the feet. I feel like he has a good chance to knock out a guy like Maurice Green. Do I have the confidence to put money on a guy like Junior Albini? No. He lost to Andrei Arlovsky. He lost to Alexei motherfucking Oleinik, who, he just allowed to just put together an Ezekiel choke standing in a clinch, and then eventually, Alexei Oleinik pulled him to the ground and then got the tap there. And the next fight, he got knocked out by Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who is a guy that he probably should have been able to ground and pound and just get out of there. But unfortunately, he left this fight on the feet, and Jairzinho was able to capitalize there. I wouldn't be surprised to see Maurice Green be able to get this fight to the ground and then work his jiu-jitsu game. I don't like either fighters in terms of their skills and thinking that they're the most, efficient there. It's interesting that the odds have closed. Wow. I saw, from what I remember, Maurice Green was roughly around minus 160, minus 150-ish. Now he's all the way at pick'em odds. Ooh, I might have to consider Maurice Green here, considering how bad Junior Albini's fight IQ is. Again, not a big fan of the crochet boss, but this definitely has some value, especially if it hits plus money. I think I wouldn't mind stabbing Maurice Green here. I'm going to pick Maurice Green again. I'm not a big fan of Junior Albini. I just don't think he's the best UFC caliber guy out there. Not saying that Maurice Green is either, but you got to play the number here. So if you can get plus money beside Maurice Green's name, I would definitely jump on that. But as of right now, it's a no bet for me. I'm going to see where the odds go and see if Maurice Green actually becomes the underdog. Next up, official pick is going to be Maurice Green by submission. Next up, we got Emily Whitmire against Amanda Ribas. Starting off with Emily Whitmire. She's coming off a quick submission victory over Alexandra Albu. I believe I had plus money on Albu and took the shot there. Unfortunately, Emily Whitmire comes out on the winning end, especially 1 minute into that fight too. So that was very surprising. I think she has a stiffer test here against Amanda Ribas in terms of at least jiu-jitsu that she's going to have to deal with. So I think that Emily Whitmire is going to have to get her game going on the feet here if she wants to be victorious against Amanda Ribas. But Amanda Ribas, even in her last fight against Jennifer Gonzalez, she made no bones about it either. She wanted to get this fight to the ground, and she tried like the shittiest fucking takedowns. Her head and arm throws really backfired against her at the beginning of the fight against Jennifer. Lucky for her, Jennifer's not the greatest fighter either. We should have an over-under on how many times I fucking yawn during this fucking podcast. I can't help it, guys. I don't know what the fuck it is. Next time, I'm going to come strapped with the coffee. Hopefully that helps me out. Regardless, Amanda Ribas, she went for the same head and arm throw in that second round once that started going. And to her credit, she noticed that Jennifer Gonzalez was gassing, and she took advantage of that takedown once again and was able to get the finish via punches. She got the full mount. It was pretty easy for her, but I think she's going to put up with a little bit more resistance against Emily Whitmire here. So I'm not too impressed with Amanda Ribas. I haven't been able to completely watch the Poliana-Viana fight. It's only 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Just wasn't able to do that. Not sure what that is. Huh. Something's louder on here. Either way, yeah, I'm not impressed with Amanda Ribas. You know, she's coming off roughly a 3-year layoff as well, so that's definitely going to play against her too. So I'm going to go with Emily Whitmire here by decision. It's a no play for me immediately, or as of right now, with her sitting at -170. But as a pick, I'm definitely going to pick up Emily Whitmire here. Like I said off the top of the show, this is going to be a slightly condensed version of the regular Lock-Cast that you are used to, but I will try to put in as much effort into the fights that I believe that matter the most here. So even this Jared Gordon fight, he's going up against Dan Moret here. I like Jared Gordon's style in terms of being forward pressure, always moving forward. Wow, that's so fucking redundant, isn't it? It's just I love his style in terms of just putting the pressure on guys and just allowing them not to breathe. You know, unfortunately, in the Joaquim Silva fight, it came back to bite him in the butt, and Joaquim Silva was able to knock him out. And Diego Ferreira knocked him out pretty quickly as well, within 2 minutes of their fight as well. I think he's going to have some more success with Dan Moret. You know, Dan Moret has been on a pretty rough stretch as well. You know, he's winless in the UFC, losing to Gilbert Burns and Alex White. I think he's going to have the same trouble with Jared Gordon here. Would I trust Jared Gordon at -350? Probably not. You know, you got to question his chin issues. You know, maybe, you know, we saw with Brian Barberena coming back as a completely different fighter, but this guy's coming off of 2 pretty devastating losses back to back. So he's taken off 6 months since the last time he got knocked out, but I'm not 100% sure that if I can trust somebody with as shady of a chin as Jared Gordon, especially against a longer guy like Dan Moret. You know, he's going to have a roughly 5-inch reach advantage. So it's going to be interesting to see if Jared Gordon's going to be able to get into the range of Dan Moret and will make him work the way that he's used to making these guys work without getting clipped and getting his chin tested again. So I'll go with Jared Gordon here just because his style is just so, you know, it's so likable and it's very, you know, it's the most... in my opinion, it's the most efficient way for guys to get victories is if their cardio can hold up and they can continue to make their opponent work. But again, the only thing that's keeping me from betting him is the possible chin issues. So I'm not willing to risk my money here to find out if it will hold up or not. So I will take Jared Gordon by decision, but don't trust him enough to bet him. Next up, we got Jordan Griffin against Vince Murdock. Vince Murdock is going to be making his UFC debut after coming off a pretty tumultuous run with the SFL and then having a victory in Total Warrior Combat over Justin King via punches. You know, he had a very weird run in the SFL, the Super Fight League. His first fight got stopped due to a cut, which ended up turning into a no contest, and then he initially lost to Vikas Dehia via groin strikes. Vikas kept going for these low kicks that ended up hitting that hit Vince Murdock in the nuts twice or 3 times at least, and then eventually for some reason the referee thought that it was just low leg kicks and that Vince Murdock couldn't continue, so he actually initially named the fight as a win for Vikas, but eventually got turned over to a no contest. So it was interesting to me to go into this topology page of Vince Murdock and see that he won via groin strike. So I'm like, it's the SFL. Who fucking knows? You know, these guys probably allow groin strikes for all I know. But, you know, going back into it, it was actually a disqualification, so maybe it should have been DQ brackets groin strikes for Vince Murdock, but you know, so he's coming off 4 straight wins. His last loss is a guy that I just bet on in Jeremiah Labiano, so it's interesting that his name has popped up again, but even before that he lost to my man Jesse Arnett. He has a good win against TJ Laramie, who's definitely a prospect as well, but in this fight I think you know, you guys already know how I feel about short notice opponents. I'm gonna put like a running count, a ticker every time I fucking yawn in these upcoming episodes, maybe one day. So Jordan Griffin was actually supposed to fight Chas Skelly, my man Chas Skelly on Twitter. Unfortunately, Chas Skelly got injured and Vince Murdock steps in. You guys know how I feel about UFC newcomers, especially if they're taking it on short notice. So I'm going to go with Jordan Griffin here, even though it's his second fight in the UFC. I think he's got his UFC jitters out of the way. But again, betting him at -360, I think not. But I'm still going to take Jordan Griffin by decision. Next up, we got Eryk Anders versus Vinicius Moreira, aka Vinicius Castro. um, Vinicius Moreira, starting off with him, he's coming off a loss to Alonzo Menifield, and he was actually a Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series Brazilian edition product. So, really good jiu-jitsu. Stand-up could be, is not the greatest. And I think he's going to have trouble with Eryk Anders here if Eryk Anders is able to get his things together on the feet. He came out very flat against Khalil Roundtree. You could also attest that to Khalil Roundtree, stepping his game up with his Muay Thai, doing all that work over at Tiger Muay Thai. But Eryk Anders is in a very peculiar position here now. He's 1-4 in his last 5 fights. His only victory coming over Tim Williams. But, he lost to Lyoto Machida, Thiago Santos, Elias Theodorou, and then Khalil Roundtree. So you got to expect this is definitely a must-win for Eryk Anders here. And if he's not able to pull off a victory over Vinicius Moreira, he's probably going to get his walking papers. And I think that's enough for him to, put on a performance that he definitely needs. He did what he needed to in terms of getting a sports hypnotist. So, apparently it works for some guys, and I think it will work out for a guy like Eryk Anders as well. Minus 350, another minus 350 that I probably would not trust. Vinicius Moreira, not the brightest bulb. But he could definitely pull off a submission victory here. But I don't think it's going to happen. I don't trust Eryk Anders either at minus 350. So I'm going to take Eryk Anders by probably in the second or third round. Maybe I might even look at the inside the distance odds for Eryk Anders. But I think that Vinicius Moreira has a terrible gas tank, not the best striking, and makes it a little bit too obvious that he wants to try to get this fight to the ground, which I think it will make it easier for Eryk Anders to sprawl on him and then continuously beat him up on the feet. So I think we'll see a later finish for Eryk Anders here, maybe later in the second round or early third round, but I definitely think he finishes Moreira here. And you know what? Let's just quickly look at what the end of distance odds for Eryk Anders is. Minus 145 for Eryk Anders. So I don't know. I think that's a little bit too much for me to kind of, put on a in the distance bet. Like I know that I bet Jairzinho Rozenstruik minus 142 inside the distance last week. But that was definitely, Alan Crowder, heavyweights. Eryk Anders, we've seen him go to a decision a couple times, so I wouldn't be surprised that if he, just plays it a little bit safer and just takes a decision here. But I definitely think his path to victory is inside the distance once Vinicius Moreira starts sucking some wind. So I'm going to take official pick, let's say Eryk Anders, third round TKO. Next up, a fight that I'm going to gloss over relatively quickly because I wanted it to be Sergio Pettis against Ricardo Ramos. Instead, we're getting Journey Newson against Ricardo Ramos here. I love Ricardo Ramos. He has a lot of potential. He's coming off a loss to another guy who has a lot of potential in Saeed Nurmagomedov, and it would have been great to see if he was able to bounce back against a guy like Sergio Pettis. Unfortunately, Pettis pulls out. Journey Newson comes in. Not too familiar with Journey Newson. Even when I was putting the tape index together, I was only able to find 2 fights for him. So, check out those 2 fights if you guys are able to. If you guys are able to find even more fights on Journey Newson, hit me up at MMA LOTN. Let me know, and I'll make sure I add it to the tape index, and I'll give you guys a shout out as well so you guys are properly credited for helping a brother out. But I'm going to take Ricardo Ramos here by decision. Again, not too much technical analysis on Journey Newson here. I wish I could give you guys some more, but there's really no need to, especially with Ricardo Ramos at being minus 130, minus 325. Not sure if he'll be parlay worthy either, but Ricardo Ramos regardless. Next up, Alonzo Menifield against Paul Craig. Paul motherfucking Craig still always finds a way to pull this shit out. In the UFC, he sits at 3-3. Beating Luis Enrique de Silva, beating Magomed Ankalaev, and then most recently beating Kennedy and Zechiku. He's always pulling out these wins at the end, Kennedy Nzechukwu, he submitted with 40 seconds left, and then he submitted Magomed Ankalaev with 1 second left as well. So that one was nuts. Jimmy Crute was able to, put the beating on him that he needed, finishing that fight with 9 seconds left. It's crazy that all of his fights have finished in the third round with less than a minute left. It's insane. And then Khalil Rountree and Tyson Pedro were able to put a whooping on him too. So I expect Alonzo Menifield to come in here and absolutely whoop Paul Craig as well. Another heavy favorite in Alonzo Menifield, minus 320. Inside the distance is minus 215, so I probably wouldn't even bet that either. I expect Alonzo Menifield to keep this fight on the feet. I don't expect him to he only has 2 more fights than Kennedy Nzechukwu did when he went up against Paul Craig, but I expect him to be more athletic, more powerful, more able to get the finish at the beginning of the fight and not, tempt fate by sitting in his guard later in the fight. If this fight does get past the 1.5 round mark, I would be a little bit concerned for Alonzo Menifield that as he normally likes to get these fights finished relatively quickly. We have seen him get into the second round in his LFA fight and second round in his RFA fights as well. But I expect this one to be a first round finish for Alonzo Menifield. I just don't see Paul Craig being able to get him to the ground, and I don't see it going past the first round either. So I'm going to take Alonzo Menifield by first round KO. He's going to be able to keep this on the feet, and Paul Craig is unfortunately going to have to take the pain. Next up, Drew Dober against Marco Polo Reyes. Drew Dober looked really good against Beneil Dariush until he was caught in that armbar in the second round. But he rocked and dropped Beneil Dariush a couple times. I had hefty money on Beneil Dariush in that fight too, so that was a roller coaster of a fight for me to watch, unfortunately. But fortunately, Beneil Dariush was able to pull off the victory there, and Drew Dober had to go home with an L. But I think this weekend he's going to be going home with a W. Minus 350 as well. Odds are too wide for this. I would expect closer to minus 175, minus 180 for Drew Dober. So in the end, this will be a pass for me, as I do think Drew Dober will win this fight. Polo Reyes is coming off of pretty devastating losses himself to, I believe it was Damir Hadzovic. Yeah, Damir Hadzovic put him out in the second round back in February. And I think that Drew Dober is going to be able to do the same. I think Drew Dober catches Polo Reyes, puts him out, which is unfortunate. Polo Reyes is a very entertaining fighter, but I think his chin issues are going to start catching up with him here. And Drew Dober has been showing that he's very precise with his striking, and he has a lot of power behind it too. So I think that he's going to catch Polo Reyes and put him out probably in the first round. Would I bet him? No. Not at minus 350. All right, let's move on. We got Roosevelt Roberts against Vinc Pichel. Very much looking forward to this fight as well. Vinc Pichel coming off a ragdolling to Gregor Gillespie in his last fight. Pretty much everybody and their mother saw that fight going the way that it did. Let's see what the odds were on that fight. He was a plus 325 underdog against Gregor Gillespie, which, again, Gregor Gillespie is the uncrowned king in the lightweight division, in my opinion. I just want to see him get those top 5 fights, which is what he deserves. And we have Vinc Pichel kind of playing gatekeeper status here against a guy like Roosevelt Roberts, who's currently 8-0 going into this fight against Vinc Pichel. I love what Roosevelt brings to the table. He has a really good striking game, but a very developing ground game as well. So it's going to be interesting to see if he's going to be able to implement it against Vinc Pichel here. I think this is going to be mainly a stand-up fight, though. I think he's going to light Vinc Pichel up on the feet. I don't think that he should... Oh, it's minus 250 now. Interesting. Yeah. I want to see where these odds go. If I can get Roosevelt Roberts roughly around the minus 200 mark, maybe that's a bet that I will make. But I think he wins this fight, man. Vinc Pichel is no pushover, but I think that Roosevelt Roberts just definitely has his number here. Vinc Pichel is up there in age now, too. He's 36. Very injury prone. He had that 3-year layoff between his Anthony Njokuani fight and Damian Brown fight, but since then he's had 3 fights, Damian Brown, Joaquim Silva, and Gregor Gillespie, but I think he takes an L here. I think it's going to be 2 straight losses for Vinc Pichel, and Roosevelt Roberts is going to keep this train going. Again, I will wait till roughly about minus 200-ish for Roosevelt Roberts, but if it doesn't get there, then I'm going to have to go with... just passing on this fight in total. But I'll take Roosevelt Roberts by decision. Next up, we got Demian Maia against Tony Martin. I like this fight, man. I really like this fight, and I definitely like the underdog here. Anthony Rocco Martin currently sitting around roughly around plus 160. I'm gonna have to. I might be betting him here. I like him as a dog. I love his performance against Sergio Moraes last time. Great calf kicks, made it very hard for Sergio Moraes. I think that he'll be able to implement the same type of game plan against Demian Maia here. Demian Maia does a really good job of clinching guys and dragging them to the floor, and then implementing his insane jiu-jitsu game. I don't know if he's going to have that same success here as he will with Anthony Martin. I think Anthony Martin will be able to fight off the takedowns for the first round and then do enough damage on the feet that it'll be harder for Demian Maia to get the fight to the ground later in the second and third round. So I wouldn't be surprised to see an Anthony Martin finish in the third round when Demian Maia just continuously tries to get this fight to the ground but is not able to. But I like him as a dog here, man. I do, and the price is definitely getting worse on Demian Maia, which means it's getting better for Anthony Martin. So I would wait. I think we'll definitely see some money coming in on Demian Maia closer to fight time, just because of his name value alone. A lot of people don't really know who Anthony Rocco Martin is, let alone who the fuck Tony Martin is. So I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait probably till about Thursday, Friday, see where the line is for Rocco. But I like him anywhere even better than plus 150. So I like Anthony Martin here. I'm gonna take him by, let's say, third round finish. I think that he pounds out. I think he pounds out Demian Maia. I think that he keeps the fight on the feet. But if this fight gets dragged to the ground and Demian Maia gets his back, it's a wrap immediately. I just don't think that he will. I think that Tony Martin will do enough in that first round to keep this fight on the feet, beat him up, and then make it harder and harder for Demian Maia to get him down later in the fight. And I will take Anthony Martin via third round finish. Co-main event time. We got Jussier Formiga against Joseph Benavidez, pretty much fighting for a number one contender shot. They should definitely be fighting for the title after this. Jussier Formiga is stringing together 4 straight wins after coming off a loss to Ray Borg. He's beaten Oka Sasaki, Ben Nguyen, who are both in Rizin now, Sergio Perez, Davison Figueiredo, and now he's going up against a fighter that he lost to back in 2013 via punches, which is Joseph Benavidez. So Jussier Formiga has definitely come a long way since his striking, or with his striking, I should say. Really putting it together on the feet. He rocked Ben Nguyen with the spinning back fist and then eventually choked him out. But his striking is definitely coming to fruition. And his ability to get this fight to the ground and control these guys is coming to fruition as well. He was able to do it against Sergio Bettis. He was able to do it against Davis and Figueiredo. Will he be able to do it against Joseph Benavidez? I don't think so. I think that we're going to kind of see the same fight as we did as the first time around. I don't know if Benavidez will be able to get the finish this time around, but I think that we'll see Benavidez keep this fight on the feet and then do enough in the striking department to beat a guy like Jussier Formiga. And I'm highly considering Joseph Benavidez as a lock of the night play. I really like him. He's just a great fighter all around, does fundamentals, does everything correct. His loss to Sergio Pettis was very disheartening for me, especially I made that lock of the night play on Joseph Benavidez for that fight, but he's come back and he's looked amazing. He looked like his regular self when he fought Alex Perez and Dustin Ortiz, and now he's fighting Jussier Formiga, which I think is a kind of a tailor-made fight for him as well. Formiga wants to get this fight to the ground, but Benavidez has great wrestling, great defensive wrestling as well, great submission defense too, so I don't think that he'll have much issues with keeping this fight, in a realm that will benefit him most, which is the stand-up. And I think that even with the stride that Jussier Formiga has made with his striking, I think Benavidez is just too good everywhere, and I think that he'll outstrike Jussier Formiga. Just win the fight that he normally does. So I'm going to take Benavidez by decision here, and I think that this will set up a number one contender, or at least this should set up a title fight for him. He should definitely run that fight back with Henry Cejudo. We know Cejudo's out for at least another 6 months, so I hope that when Cejudo comes back, he comes back to defend the flyweight title against Benavidez, and then goes on to defend it against the bantamweight strap against Aljamain Sterling, who I believe is the most deserving of that title shot. All right, main event time. Francis Ngannou versus Junior Dos Santos. Currently, the line is sitting at minus 250 for Francis Ngannou. Comeback on Junior Dos Santos is plus 210. In my opinion, this line is a little bit wide. Junior Dos Santos is coming off of 3 straight victories over Blagoy Ivanov, Tai Tuivasa, and Derek Lewis. The last two, a lot of people thought that Dos Santos was going to get knocked out by, and I think that's obviously the same kind of feeling that people have here against Francis Ngannou. I wouldn't be surprised to see Junior Dos Santos kind of try to implement a grappling type game plan here, try to get Francis Ngannou to the ground, but I wouldn't also be surprised to see Junior Dos Santos to kind of be a very tentative fighter in the first round and a half, 2 rounds, and try to drag this fight a little bit later, which is where he'll have more success with a grappling heavy game, which is what I think he'll do. I like Dos Santos here, especially above plus 200, man. I really like the value that he holds here. Francis Ngannou is a one-hitter quitter type of guy. If he's not able to land that bomb, it's going to be very difficult for him to try to string this victory together. And I think that's why a lot of people are betting on Francis Ngannou. I think they think that he's going to be able to land that shot and put JDS out. But I think that JDS is slowly removing himself from that shinny issue type of guy. Even the Stipe and the Overeem fights, like, they weren't the cleanest of knockouts. Like, he wasn't out cold, I think that he still has a decent chin. Derek Lewis and Tai Tuivasa were able to land really good shots on him. They didn't go out. But obviously Francis Ngannou has different types of fucking bricks for hands, and anything that he lands could probably put Junior Dos Santos out. But if you were to put a gun to my head and ask where the best value is in this, it definitely has to be with Junior Dos Santos because he has more paths to victory. Whereas Francis Ngannou, he's looking for that crazy uppercut. He's looking for the overhand right. He's just looking for that kill shot. And if that's all you're banking on against a guy that as technically savvy as Junior Dos Santos is on the feet, more often than not, you may land it, but Junior Dos Santos does a really good job of rolling with these punches too. He's done a really good job with, keeping himself off of the cage, which is what, in my opinion, was his downfall in the Alistair Overeem fight and the Stipe Miocic fight as well. I think that his ability to, continuously circle off the cage, use his footwork to keep him out of bad positions, and rolling with punches will definitely play dividends here for Junior Dos Santos. I love the value on Dos Santos here. I'm definitely going to make a play on him. I want to see if people, jump back on the Francis train because the odds are kind of switching a bit and getting a little bit closer. But I think we might be able to see Junior Dos Santos back up in the plus 230-ish level, which is where I want to bet him at. So, ton of value on JDS in my opinion, at least skill wise. Obviously Francis can land on anybody and put them out, but I think that Junior Dos Santos overall as a fighter is the better fighter. May not have as much power as Francis Ngannou because Francis Ngannou has that scary heavyweight power. But I think that this is JDS's fight, man. I think that he could truly put together a very good victory here, wear out Francis Ngannou for the first 2 rounds and then really put his game in for moving on from the 3rd round. I could see a 4th or 3rd round finish for JDS. Francis Ngannou really, I highly doubt that he's rectified any of his cardio issues that he's had in the past. It's tough for a guy in the heavyweight division to do that, but JDS is a guy that, he knows how to pace himself from 1 to 5, from rounds 1 to 5, and I think it's something that he's going to implement in this fight as well against Francis Ngannou. So I really got to go with JDS here. I'm going to pick him to win this fight, and I'm also going to possibly bet on him as well, seeing where the odds go when the odds start to settle out a little bit more. So I'm going to go with JDS. I'm going to say 4th round finish, TKO, and we see Francis Ngannou unfortunately take another loss. Y'all can say whatever they want in the comments. Jump on the Francis Ngannou hype train. Get his odds, even wider, and get me a better price on JDS, please. That's a wrap. That's UFC Minneapolis. I'm super psyched for this fight. Super psyched for this event. Can't wait to watch it this weekend. It's a long weekend up here in Canada, too. We got Canada Day on the Monday, so we got the Monday off, so it's going to be a nice long weekend. Hopefully I can start it off on this Saturday with a great victory for myself, not just Junior Dos Santos, but for myself. I just dropped Combative Tours last night, episode 6. Me and Tony go over a bunch of shit. Check it out. We had a lot of fun doing it. I love fucking doing that podcast. I love just talking MMA. Not technically just breaking down fights, but just talking shit, talking MMA. I fucking enjoy it. I love it. Tape index is up as well for UFC Minneapolis, so make sure you guys check that out to get all your gambling preparation needs. We got everything on one page for it. Everything is just a click away for you, rather than you having to scour the internet and find all these fucking random fights, or finding their Tapology page, finding all these fights on Fight Pass. I got it all there for you on the tape index, so make sure you guys check that out. That should be about it. Hopefully I get to drop this tonight, which is Tuesday. I'm going to head home and quickly edit this shit and see if I can get it out for you guys ASAP. That should be it. All right. Thanks for watching as always. Make sure you guys rate, subscribe, like, do all that shit. Hit me up on Twitter at MMA LOTN if you guys want to discuss anything that you guys heard on this podcast, or even just fucking comment it below if you guys are watching this on YouTube, and we can have a discussion in there. I welcome everybody. Haters, lovers, people in the middle. I love y'all. Thank you for giving me the view. Thanks for listening to me. And hopefully we can get back on the horse with this UFC Minneapolis card. I will be back next week to record a podcast for UFC 239. We'll also be doing a Combatter Source next week as well. And then I'm off to Montreal for next weekend. I got a wedding to go out to. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to miss UFC 239, which is a bit of a bummer. I will try to catch up as soon as I can. But that will be it. That's it. I'm done. I'm out. I got to start talking. I got to stop. It's done. It's over. See you guys next week. Peace.